A deep hum filled the cockpit as warning lights flashed across the control panel. Captain Doran Cade gritted his teeth, struggling to keep his ship steady. The Astronova, his trusted spacecraft, had suffered a critical failure after an unexpected energy surge in deep space. Now he was falling towards an unknown planet, and the ship's automated systems were barely holding together. "Come on, baby, just hold on a little longer," Doran muttered, his hands moving quickly over the controls. The atmosphere burned around him as the ship crashed through thick clouds. The planet below was a mix of jagged mountains and dense forests. Doran activated the emergency landing protocol, but the ship was already spinning out of control. The impact was brutal. The Astronova crashed through the trees, skidding across the rocky ground before coming to a stop. Smoke filled the air. The hull groaned under the stress, and sparks rained down from exposed wires. Doran coughed, unbuckling his seatbelt. His vision blurred for a moment, but he forced himself to focus. He was alive. That was all that mattered. He grabbed a small oxygen mask from the emergency kit and pushed open the damaged hatch. Outside, the planet was eerily silent. The air was thick and cool with a faint glow from twin moons above. Towering trees with twisting branches surrounded the wreckage, their dark leaves rustling in the wind. Doran took a deep breath. His ship was broken, and his long-range communicator was likely destroyed. He needed to find shelter and figure out where he had landed. But as he stepped forward, something moved in the shadows. A figure. No, several figures. Doran's hand moved instinctively to his sidearm, but he hesitated. The beings before him were humanoid, their tall, lean bodies covered in simple armor made from bone and metal. Their skin was various shades of deep blue and silver, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. They carried weapons, sharp, curved blades and spears, but they did not attack. Instead, they watched him with wide, astonished eyes. Then one of them stepped forward. She was different. Her sapphire blue skin shimmered under the moonlight, and her dark hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders. Her golden eyes locked onto Doran's face with an intensity that made his heart pound. She whispered something in her language, her voice filled with disbelief. Then, in a slow, careful tone, she spoke in a language he understood. Humans were only legends, until now. Doran frowned, his grip tightening on his blaster. "You know about humans." The woman, who seemed to be a leader, exchanged glances with her people before nodding. "We know. Stories. But stories are not real." Doran exhaled. This was getting stranger by the second. "Well, I'm real," he said, lowering his weapon slightly. "And I need help. My ship is damaged. Do you have shelter?" The woman studied him for a long moment before nodding. She turned to her people and spoke in their language. They hesitated but eventually lowered their weapons. She gestured for Doran to follow. As they moved through the dense forest, Doran's mind raced. How did these aliens know about humans? And why did they act like he was some kind of myth? The village came into view, nestled between towering cliffs and surrounded by natural barriers. Fires flickered, casting warm light over the stone-built homes. The people, Villery, as he later learned, gathered in awe, whispering as they saw him. Inside a large stone hall, Doran was given water and food. The woman sat across from him, her gaze never leaving his face. "My name is Ceres Kalun," she finally said. "You are the first human we have ever seen." Doran leaned forward. "Then tell me, what happened to the others?" Ceres hesitated. Then she said the words that sent chills down his spine. "Humans disappeared from the stars over 1,000 years ago. No one knows why." Doran's breath caught. 1,000 years. That was impossible. Humanity was alive and well. At least in his time. Something was very wrong. And he was about to find out why. Doran Cade sat by the flickering fire in the great stone hall, his mind racing. The words of Ceres Kalun echoed in his head. Humans disappeared from the stars over 1,000 years ago. It made no sense. Humans were thriving, spreading across the galaxy. He had been part of an advanced space fleet. How could they be gone? Had he traveled through time? Or was this part of the universe simply cut off from human contact? Ceres sat across from him, watching him carefully. The other Velari villagers whispered among themselves, still stunned by his presence. To them, he was not just a visitor. He was a ghost of a forgotten past. Doran exhaled and looked at Ceres. "How do you know about humans if we've been gone for so long?" Ceres hesitated, then gestured for him to follow. "Come, you need to see something. The ruins of the past." Doran followed Ceres through winding stone pathways leading out of the village. 2 Velari warriors flanked them, their glowing eyes scanning the darkness. The night air was crisp, and the twin moons bathed the land in silver light. After a long walk, they reached a large stone structure covered in vines. It looked ancient, worn by time, yet strong. Ceres pushed open the heavy doors, revealing a vast chamber filled with strange carvings on the walls. Doran stepped inside, his breath catching as he saw the murals. They depicted humans. Not just any humans, warriors in massive armor, standing tall among alien allies, fighting against monstrous enemies. "These are your people," Ceres said, her voice quiet. Doran stepped closer, running his fingers over the carvings. The humans in the murals carried weapons unlike anything he had ever seen. Blades of pure energy, rifles that crackled with power. Beside them stood Velari warriors, fighting side by side against shadowy figures with glowing red eyes. Ceres pointed at one mural. It showed a battle in space. Massive human warships engaged in combat with terrifying, spiked vessels. Below, planets burned. "This is the last war," she said. "The war that ended the age of humans." Doran turned to her. Who were they fighting? Ceres's golden eyes darkened. "The Zorvath Dominion. The ones who now rule the stars. The Zorvath threat." Doran listened as Ceres told the story. 1,000 years ago, humanity was the greatest power in the galaxy. They were explorers, warriors, and leaders. They built alliances, helped weaker species, and brought order to chaos. But then came the Zorvath Dominion, a brutal empire that sought absolute control. They attacked without warning, destroying entire civilizations. Humanity fought back with everything they had, and for a while, they held the line. Then suddenly, they vanished. No one knew how or why. Some believed humans were wiped out. Others whispered that they had fled beyond the known galaxy. But one thing was certain. After their disappearance, the Zorvath took control. Doran clenched his fists. It was hard to believe. Humanity was strong. How could they lose? And more importantly, if they had vanished, then why was he here? As if sensing his thoughts, Ceres placed a hand on his shoulder. "You are proof that humans still exist, and if you survived, others might, too." Before Doran could respond, a loud horn sounded in the distance. Ceres' expression changed instantly. "No, they found us. The hunters arrive." The Velari warriors grabbed their weapons, their faces tense. Doran followed Ceres outside, his heart pounding. A bright red light glowed in the sky, growing closer. It was a ship, sleek, black, and covered in glowing runes. The Zorvath hunters had arrived. The villagers ran for cover as the enemy ship landed. The ground trembled as the doors hissed open, revealing tall, armored figures with piercing red eyes. Their skin was dark and scaled, their movements precise. They carried plasma rifles, and their leader, a towering Zorvath with a long scar across his face, stepped forward. His voice was deep and commanding. "Surrender the human." Silence fell over the village. The Velari warriors held their weapons tightly, but they were outmatched. The Zorvath were too strong. Doran stepped forward before anyone else could speak. His hand hovered near his sidearm. "Who are you? And why are you looking for me? The Zorvath leader chuckled, his red eyes glowing brighter. You are an abomination. Humans do not exist. You should not exist. Doran's jaw tightened. Well, I do, and I'm not going anywhere. The Zorvath raised their weapons. Then you will die. Before the first shot was fired, Doran moved. The battle begins. He dodged as plasma bolts tore through the air. Rolling to the side, he fired back, taking down one of the Zorvath soldiers. The Velari warriors, inspired by his courage, let out a battle cry and charge. Cirrus fought beside him, her twin blades cutting through enemy ranks. Doran shot with precision, his military training taking over. But the Zorvath were relentless, their sheer numbers overwhelming. A sudden explosion threw Doran off his feet. He hit the ground hard, his vision blurring. The Zorvath leader loomed over him, his plasma rifle aimed at Doran's chest. This is where the legend ends, the Zorvath sneered. But before he could pull the trigger, a deep rumble shook the ground. The old stone structure behind them began to glow, ancient symbols lighting up with a strange energy. The Zorvath hesitated, stepping back. The Velari gasped in awe. And then, the wall cracked open. Inside, something stirred. Something old. Doran's eyes widened as he realized what it was. A human artifact. The battle was far from over. Doran Cade lay on the cold ground, his head ringing from the explosion. The Zorvath leader stood over him, plasma rifle aimed at his chest. This is where the legend ends, the Zorvath sneered. But before he could fire, the ground rumbled beneath them. The ancient structure behind them, the one filled with human carvings, began to glow. The strange symbols on the walls pulsed with energy, as if awakened from a deep sleep. Everyone, Doran, Cirrus, the Velari warriors, and even the Zorvath, stared in shock as a hidden wall split apart, revealing a dark chamber within. From the shadows, something massive stirred. A machine. No, not just a machine. Armor. Doran's breath caught as he saw it. The massive suit of battle armor stood on a platform, surrounded by dim blue lights. Its design was unmistakably human. Sleek, powerful, and ancient, unlike anything the Velari or Zorvath had ever seen. The Zorvath leader took a cautious step back. Impossible. Doran didn't waste a second. He ran. Ignoring the pain in his body, he sprinted toward the chamber. The Zorvath fired, but the glowing energy from the ruins blocked their shots, as if protecting him. Doran didn't know why. He didn't care. He reached the armor and placed his hand on its cold surface. The moment his fingers touched it, the entire structure came to life. DNA signature confirmed. A robotic voice echoed through the chamber. Human detected. Activating protocol. The armor opened. Before Doran could even react, it pulled him in. The pieces locked around his body, a perfect fit, as if it had been waiting for him. His vision filled with a new interface. Tactical data, energy levels, combat functions. The moment the armor sealed, a surge of raw power coursed through him. For the first time in his life, he felt unstoppable. The human weapon awakens. Doran stepped forward, the ground trembling under his armored boots. The Zorvath aimed their weapons at him, but he moved faster than he ever had before. The first blast hit him, but the energy shield surrounding the armor absorbed it like nothing. The Zorvath's eyes widened in fear. Doran smirked. My turn. He lunged forward, closing the distance in an instant. His fist slammed into the first Zorvath, sending the warrior flying across the ruins. The second raised his rifle, but Doran's reflexes were too fast. He grabbed the barrel, crushed it, and threw the enemy into the stone wall. The Zorvath leader snarled. Kill him. A rain of plasma fire erupted, but Doran dodged with ease, his new armor making every move smooth and precise. His HUD highlighted enemy positions, tracking every movement. He raised his arm, instinct taking over, and a built-in energy cannon fired a blast. vaporizing the Zorvath soldier in an instant. Cirrus and the Velari warriors watched in awe. To them, it was like watching a god of war come to life. The Zorvath leader's confidence was gone. He took a step back, his red eyes flickering with something Doran had never seen in a Zorvath before. Fear. The Zorvath retreat. The battle turned quickly. The remaining Zorvath warriors, seeing their leader hesitate, began to fall back. Their rifles were useless against Doran's armor, and their numbers were dwindling fast. The leader cursed and activated a communication device. "This isn't over," he growled. "We need reinforcements." Doran wasn't about to let that happen. He leaped forward, covering 10 meters in a single bound, and grabbed the Zorvath leader by the throat. His enhanced strength made it effortless. "You came here thinking humans were gone," Doran said coldly. "You were wrong." The leader struggled, gasping for air. "You don't understand. The Dominion. They will hunt you." Doran narrowed his eyes. "Let them try." Then, with a powerful throw, he sent the Zorvath flying into a pile of rubble. The alien groaned, barely able to move. The remaining warriors panicked and fled to their ship, lifting off in a hurry. The battle was over. For now. The truth about the armor. The ruins fell silent as the dust settled. The Velari warriors lowered their weapons, staring at Doran with expressions of shock and reverence. Cirrus stepped forward, her golden eyes filled with something Doran couldn't quite place. Awe, respect, maybe even hope. She reached out and touched the glowing energy field around his armor. "This is human technology." Doran looked down at himself. The suit felt perfect, as if it had been waiting for him all along. The interface inside his helmet displayed a name. Aegis 09, last guardian of the Terran Empire. Doran's throat tightened. Terran Empire. That wasn't what humanity called itself in his time. Something was very wrong. Cirrus looked up at him. "The Zorvath will return. And when they do, they will come with greater numbers." Doran nodded. "Let them." He clenched his armored fists. "I need answers, and I think this armor holds them." A new message flashed across his HUD. Final command sequence detected. Accessing last recorded transmission. The ruins trembled again. The walls glowed brighter. Then, from deep within the ancient structure, a hologram flickered to life. It was a human. And what it said changed everything. "If you are seeing this, then we were betrayed." Doran Cade stood motionless, his breath caught in his throat as the hologram flickered before him. It was a human figure, dressed in the same kind of advanced armor he now wore. The image was slightly distorted, the transmission damaged by time, but the voice was clear, strong, and urgent. "If you are seeing this, then we were betrayed." The room fell silent. The Velari warriors, Cirrus, and even the wounded Zorvath leader still lying in the rubble watched in stunned silence. Doran clenched his fists. Betrayed? By who? The hologram continued. "The Terran Empire stood at the height of its power. We fought wars, built alliances, and led the galaxy. But we grew arrogant. We trusted too easily. And in the end, it destroyed us." The image flickered, revealing battlefields. Human fleets burning in space, cities reduced to ash, Zorvath warships overwhelming human defenses. Doran's stomach tightened. This wasn't just a war. It was a massacre. The fall of humanity. The hologram continued. "We believed the Zorvath were our greatest enemy, but we were wrong. The real threat came from within." The scene shifted again. A new figure appeared, a tall humanoid, cloaked in dark robes, standing beside a group of humans. They weren't soldiers. They were leaders. Human leaders. The High Council of Terra made a deal, the hologram voice said bitterly. They thought they could buy peace. But in the end, they only bought time. And when the Zorvath finally struck, our leaders surrendered our worlds. Doran felt his pulse pound in his ears. The Zorveth didn't destroy humanity through war alone. They had help. Humanity's own rulers had handed them over. Ceres whispered, "Your own kind betrayed you." Doran forced himself to breathe. "Not all of us," he muttered. "Some must have fought back." The hologram seemed to answer him. "A few of us refused to kneel. We gathered what forces we could. We built weapons, armor, and ships. We fought until the last man. But the war was lost before it even began." And now, the figure in the hologram looked directly at Doran, as if seeing through time. "If you are hearing this, then you are the last." The words hit Doran like a hammer to the chest. The last? No, that couldn't be true. There had to be more humans somewhere. A call to arms. The hologram wasn't finished. "We left behind what little we could. Scattered bunkers, hidden armories, old warships buried beneath forgotten worlds. If there is still hope, it lies in what remains of our past." Doran's HUD flickered, and suddenly, a map appeared, a star chart. Markers blinked across distant planets, coordinates burned into his visor. The lost remnants of humanity's war. The hologram dimmed, the voice growing weaker. "To whoever finds this message, know this: the Zorvath will never stop hunting you. But humanity was never meant to bow. We were meant to rise." The final words echoed in the silent chamber. Then, with a final flicker, the hologram vanished. Doran exhaled slowly. He had come to this place looking for answers. He had found something more. A mission. The Zorvath's last warning. The silence was broken by the groan of the Zorvath leader. Doran turned, his armored boots crunching over debris as he walked toward the fallen warrior. The Zorvath struggled to sit up, his red eyes glowing faintly. "You don't understand," the alien rasped. "You should not have awakened this place." Doran knelt beside him. "Why?" The Zorvath coughed, dark blood dripping from his mouth. "Because now, they will come for you." Doran's eyes narrowed. "Who?" The alien's breathing was weak, but his words sent a cold chill through Doran's spine. The Dominion feared this day would come. The moment human technology reactivates, the hunters are sent. Doran glanced at Ceres. She looked just as alarmed as he felt. "What are the hunters?" she asked. The Zorvath let out a weak, bitter laugh. "Not Zorvath. Something worse. Machines, programmed to wipe out any trace of humanity. If they detect your presence, nothing in this galaxy will stop them." Doran stood, his mind racing. If what the Zorvath said was true, then the moment he had activated the armor, something else had awakened too. Something deadly. Something already hunting him. A new journey begins. Ceres stepped forward. "Doran, if these hunters are real, then we must leave this place." The Velari warriors nodded. They had seen enough war to know when to run. Doran, however, wasn't thinking about running. His eyes drifted to the star map still glowing in his HUD. There were other locations, other hidden human relics waiting to be found. Maybe even others like him. Doran took a deep breath and clenched his fists. "No, we're not running. We're going to find whatever is left of my people's legacy." He turned to Ceres. "You said the Zorvath rule the stars, right?" She nodded. "Yes, they have held power for centuries." Doran smirked. "Then it's time someone took it back." The fire in his voice ignited something in the Velari warriors. They exchanged glances, their fear slowly turning into something else. "Hope." Ceres smiled, gripping her twin blades. "Then we start by finding the next relic." Doran looked at the sky. Somewhere out there, the hunters were coming for him. The Zorvath would never stop. But that was fine, because humans never stopped fighting. And he wasn't done yet. Doran Cade stood at the entrance of the ancient ruins, his newly awakened battle armor humming with energy. The holographic star map still glowed in his helmet's display, marking the locations of hidden human relics scattered across the galaxy. But there was no time to celebrate. The Zorveth leader's warning echoed in his mind. The moment human technology reactivates, the hunters are sent. Doran had no idea what these hunters were, but if the Zorveth were afraid of them, they had to be dangerous. He turned to Cirrus and the Velari warriors. "We need to move. Now." Cirrus nodded. "Our ship is ready, but the Zorveth patrols will be searching for us." Doran smirked. "Let them." Without wasting another second, the group hurried toward the hidden exit of the ruins. The ancient walls glowed faintly as if they, too, were aware of the coming danger. And then the sky turned red. The arrival of the hunters. A deep, inhuman sound rumbled through the air, like metal grinding against metal. The ground shook, and a strange energy pulse swept across the ruins. Cirrus gasped. "That's not Zorveth technology." Doran spun around just in time to see dark shapes descending from the sky. At first, they looked like ships, but as they got closer, he realized they were not piloted. They were alive. Sleek, black mechanical beings hovered above the ruins, their bodies shifting like liquid metal. Their heads had no faces, only a single glowing red slit where eyes should be. Their arms morphed into weapons, and in a terrifying moment, they all turned to face Doran. The hunters had arrived. The lead hunter scanned the ruins, and a cold, mechanical voice echoed across the battlefield. "Human signature detected. Objective: terminate." Doran barely had time to react before the first energy blast struck the ground beside him, sending a shockwave through the air. "Run!" Cirrus shouted. The Velari warriors scattered, firing their weapons at the hunters. But the bullets and plasma blasts did nothing. The hunters' bodies absorbed the shots like water. Doran didn't run. Instead, he charged forward. Doran versus the hunters. His armor's HUD instantly locked onto targets, calculating distances and attack patterns in milliseconds. He raised his arm, activating the energy cannon built into his gauntlet, and fired a charged blast at the nearest hunter. The explosion sent the machine flying backward, crashing into a wall. But before Doran could celebrate, the hunter reformed, its body shifting back into place like nothing had happened. "Great," Doran muttered. "That would have been too easy." The other hunters swarmed him. One lunged, its clawed arm slicing through the air. Doran barely dodged, rolling under the attack before grabbing the hunter's arm. His enhanced strength let him twist and rip the limb clean off, but the machine simply grew another one. Another hunter fired a red energy blast, but Doran's armor shields activated just in time, absorbing the impact. He leaped into the air, higher than any normal human should be able to jump, and came down with a crushing punch, smashing a hunter into the ground. For a moment, it didn't move. Doran's HUD flashed with data. The only way to kill them was to destroy their core, located in the chest. He grinned. Now we're getting somewhere. Escape to the stars. Cirrus and the Velari warriors were pinned down near the ruins, struggling against the seemingly invincible hunters. Cirrus slashed at one with her twin blades, but the metallic creature caught her sword with its bare hand, twisting it away effortlessly. Before it could strike, Doran smashed into it from the side, slamming it into a stone pillar. "Not today, tin can," he growled. Cirrus gasped for breath. "These things won't stop coming. We need to leave." Doran looked around. More hunters were emerging from the sky, like a never-ending swarm. She was right. They couldn't fight forever. "We need to get to your ship," Doran said. Cirrus nodded. "This way." The group rushed through the ruins, dodging the relentless attacks of the hunters. Doran covered their retreat, using his armor's energy blasts to slow down the enemy. But the machines adapted quickly, their bodies shifting to counter his attacks. Just as they reached the hidden tunnel leading to the landing site, a massive shockwave knocked them off their feet. Doran turned to see the largest hunter yet descending from the sky. It was nearly twice his size, its body covered in spiked metallic armor, and its glowing red eyes locked onto him. Primary target identified. it said in a deep mechanical voice. Termination required. Doran gritted his teeth. Yeah, you can try. The hunter lunged, but just before impact, Ceres grabbed Doran's arm. No, we have to go, she shouted. Doran hesitated for half a second. He wanted to fight. He wanted to destroy every last one of these machines. But he knew Ceres was right. If he died here, the fight would be over before it even began. He turned and ran. The Velari ship roared to life as they climbed aboard. As soon as the hatch sealed shut, the pilot took off, engines flaring as they shot into the sky. From the viewport, Doran watched as the hunters stood motionless, staring up at them. Then, as if one mind controlled them, they all turned their heads in the same direction, toward one of the coordinates from the star map. Doran's blood ran cold. The hunters weren't just after him. They knew where the other human relics were. He clenched his fists. Ceres, he said, his voice steady. We need to get to those relics first, no matter what it takes. She met his gaze and nodded. Then we go to war. Doran turned back to the stars. The hunt had begun. But he wasn't the prey. He was the predator now. The Velari starship soared through the vast emptiness of space, its engines burning bright as it left the ruined planet behind. Inside the ship, Doran Cade stood at the control panel, his eyes locked on the holographic star map glowing before him. The hunters were not just after him. They were heading toward the same hidden human relics he had just discovered. If they reached those locations first, whatever remained of humanity's legacy would be lost forever. Ceres stepped beside him, her expression serious. We need to choose our next destination wisely. We can't stop the hunters everywhere, but we can get to one place before they do. Doran scanned the blinking coordinates on the star map. Each marked a lost human outpost, a hidden vault, or an abandoned warship. He had no idea what they contained, but one stood out. A world marked Caldris IV. The map indicated it once held a major human research facility, one of the last before humanity's fall. If anything could help them fight the hunters, it would be there. Caldris IV. Doran said, That's where we're going. Ceres hesitated. That's deep in Zorveth-controlled space. Doran smirked. Good. Let's give them a reason to be scared. The Velari warriors exchanged glances before nodding. They had fought the Zorvath for generations. If Doran had a plan, they would follow. The pilot punched in the coordinates, and with a sudden burst of speed, the ship vanished into hyperspace. A dead world. Hours later, the ship dropped out of hyperspace above Caldris IV. The planet was lifeless. The once thriving world was now a barren wasteland, covered in thick clouds and endless storms. Lightning crackled across the atmosphere, illuminating the ruined cities below. Doran frowned. Something bad happened here. Ceres nodded. The Zorvath must have attacked this world after humanity fell. Doran tightened his fists. Another piece of history, erased. But maybe, just maybe, something still remained. The ship descended carefully, landing near the coordinates. As the ramp lowered, Doran stepped out first, his boots sinking into the ash-covered ground. The air was thin, but breathable. The ruined buildings around them looked like ghosts of the past, their metal structures rusted and broken. Doran activated his armor scanner. It immediately picked up a signal, a faint energy reading, coming from beneath the surface. There's something here, he said. We need to find a way underground. Ceres pointed to a half-buried metal hatch in the distance. That might be our way in. The group moved quickly, clearing away the rubble. With a strong pull, Doran ripped open the hatch, revealing a dark tunnel leading deep into the facility. Stay close, he said, stepping inside. The last human laboratory. The underground facility was massive. The walls were lined with broken computer terminals, shattered glass, and the remains of long-dead scientists. Their skeletal forms still wore their old uniforms, their work left unfinished. Ceres shivered. They died here, alone. Doran scanned the room. Not alone. They were hiding from something. The further they moved in, the stranger the facility became. Unlike the ruins above, this place still had power. Dim emergency lights flickered, and some machines were still running. Finally, they reached the main research chamber. Inside, a massive vault door stood sealed shut. The human symbol for restricted access was still visible, barely scratched by time. Doran's armor pinged the lock, recognizing it as a Terran Empire security system. His suit automatically synced with it, and after a few tense seconds, the vault unlocked. With a deep mechanical hiss, the door slid open, revealing the last great secret of Sci-Fi, a forgotten weapon. Inside the vault, a single object stood on a raised platform. A suit of armor, unlike anything Doran had ever seen. It was larger, bulkier, and more advanced than his own, covered in intricate plating, glowing energy lines, and embedded weapons. It looked like it had been designed for war. Doran approached it slowly, his heart pounding. This wasn't just armor. This was a prototype exosuit, one of the last weapons ever created by humanity. Cirrus touched the armor's surface, her eyes wide. This could change everything. Doran nodded. If this armor was even half as powerful as it looked, it could be the key to fighting back against the Hunters and the Zorveth. But before he could activate it, his armor scanner blared a warning. Alert. Hostile presence DETKT. Doran's blood ran cold. They're here. The Hunters strike. Before anyone could react, the vault ceiling exploded, sending debris raining down. The Hunters had arrived. 3 of the black metal machines dropped into the chamber, their glowing red eyes locking onto Doran. Human technology detected, one of them announced. Eradication protocol engage. Doran didn't hesitate. He grabbed the exosuit's power core, ripping it from the platform as the Hunters opened fire. The team dived for cover, plasma shots scorching the walls around them. Cirrus threw one of her energy blades, slicing through a Hunter's leg, but the machine instantly regenerated. Doran turned to the others. We can't fight them here. We need to get this armor back to the ship. Cirrus nodded. Then let's move. Doran activated his armor's strength enhancers, lifting the exosuit onto his back. With his enhanced speed, he charged through the vault, blasting a Hunter in the chest as he ran. The exit tunnel loomed ahead, but more Hunters were blocking their path. We'll never make it, one of the Velari warriors shouted. Doran's mind raced. There was only one option. Cirrus, get to the ship, he yelled. What about you? She demanded. Doran smirked, gripping his weapon tighter. I'll buy you time. Before she could argue, he leaped into the fight, firing a charged blast straight into the enemy ranks. As the Hunters swarmed toward him, Doran only had one thought. If humanity was meant to fall, why am I still standing? And then he charged forward. Doran Cade stood alone in the underground vault, the exosuit's power core strapped to his back. The Hunters surrounded him, their glowing red eyes locked onto their target. Their mechanical voices echoed in unison. Human anomaly detected. Immediate termination required. Doran smirked. You machines really don't like me, huh? A Hunter lunged, its metallic claws slashing toward him. But Doran was faster. He rolled aside, raised his energy cannon, and fired a blast straight into the Hunter's chest. Boom! The Hunter staggered back, its body shifting to heal the damage. But Doran had already moved on, grabbing a fallen metal beam and swinging it like a club. The impact sent another Hunter crashing through a wall. But there were too many of them. More Hunters dropped from the ceiling, their bodies shifting and twisting, adapting to his attacks. Blades formed from their arms, energy pulses built up in their cores. Doran took a deep breath. He couldn't fight them all. Not yet. He activated his armor's thrusters, blasting himself toward the exit. The Hunters fired at him, red plasma bolts exploding around him, but Doran moved like a missile. Fast, precise, unstoppable. The tunnel entrance loomed ahead, just a little further. Then a hunter appeared in front of him, its claw raised to strike. Doran had no time to stop. So he didn't. Instead, he twisted his body midair and slammed the exosuit's power core into the hunter's chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the power core erupted. A shockwave of blue energy blasted through the tunnels, sending hunters flying backward, their metal bodies sparking and convulsing. The force threw Doran into the air, sending him tumbling through the exit hatch and straight onto the ship's loading ramp. Escape to the stars. Doran! Saris gasped, rushing forward. She helped him to his feet as the ship's engines roared to life. Go! Doran shouted. Now. The pilot hit the thrusters, and the ship blasted off, leaving the ruined planet behind. From the viewport, Doran saw the vault collapse, burying the remaining hunters beneath tons of rock. But he knew that wouldn't stop them forever. Saris stared at him, her golden eyes filled with concern. Are you hurt? Doran grinned, despite the burning pain in his muscles. Only my pride. Those things hit hard. She exhaled in relief. Did you get it? Doran patted the exosuit core strapped to his back. Oh yeah. And when we figure out how to use this thing. He turned to the stars, his expression hardening. The war changes. The awakening. Back in the ship's engineering bay, the exosuit stood on a metal platform, its sleek, advanced design gleaming under the ship's lights. The Velari technicians worked quickly, connecting the power core and activating the suit's systems. Doran watched as ancient human technology came back to life. The suit's eyes lit up with a bright blue glow, and suddenly, a voice echoed through the ship's speakers. Terran Empire Combat Prototype, Model X-09. Pilot authorization required. Doran stepped forward, placing his hand on the suit's control panel. The system scanned him, then beeped in confirmation. Human DNA detected. Welcome, soldier. Saris and the others stared in awe as the suit's armor shifted and opened, as if inviting its pilot inside. Doran grinned. It was time. The return of humanity. Hours later, as the ship moved through space, Doran stood on the command deck, staring at the star map. The hunters were still out there. The Zorvath still controlled the galaxy. Humanity's legacy was still buried and forgotten. But not for much longer. Saris stepped beside him. What now? Doran clenched his fists. We find the rest of the relics. We rebuild what was lost. He turned to her, his eyes filled with fire. We remind the galaxy why humanity was feared. Saris smiled. Then let's make history. The ship's engines flared, and in a burst of light, they vanished into the stars. The legend of humanity had begun again.